Welcome back. You are watching Global Eye. There has been some breakthrough in the long-standing India-China border dispute. Both sides have begun disengagement of troops from the disputed Gogra-Hotsprings area. India's External Affairs Ministry said the disengagement process will be completed by the 12th of September. This is the fourth friction point, seeing disengagement of troops. But troop deployment continues in few other spots in Depsang, Demchok and other areas along Ladakh and Arunachal Pradesh. This comes ahead of a potential meeting between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Chinese President Xi Jinping at the SCO summit in Uzbekistan. To discuss this further, we're now joined by Lieutenant General Satish, former Chief of Integrated Defence Staff, Anil Trigunayat, former Indian Ambassador and Distinguished Fellow at the Vivekananda International Foundation. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. General Dua, how significant is this? Earlier, we've seen disengagement taking place at Pangong So, at the Finger area, at Galwan. So now this is the fourth friction point that we are hearing about. Some sources of the security establishment say that majority of the friction points that had emerged after April 2020 have been resolved. Would you go to the extent of saying so, or would you like to hold your horses?
First of all, Parikshit, it's a heartening sign, because the last such disengagement took place over a year ago, because it was in August last year that we disengaged from 17 Alpha, PP 17 Alpha, 17A. So I think it's a heartening sign. We're making some progress. The progress is slow, but it has always been the case as far as India-China face-offs, standoffs, or disagreements on the LAC are concerned. Let's not forget that the Nathula incident in 1967, which led to many casualties, it took 7 years to resolve the whole issue fully. So I think it's a heartening sign. And as to your question about whether, you mentioned there are only a couple of more friction points left. Well, that's a matter of fact, because now we are left with the Depsang area and Demchok area, where we have to get into disengagement. But let's also remember that while this disengagement is a heartening sign, but it's only disengagement so far. Disengagement means that you have pulled back from a face-to-face or an eyeball-to-eyeball, or a place which can sometimes it can trigger off and unnecessarily avoidably trigger off a clash. So to that extent, it is disengagement. They're pulling back to safe distances from each other, but de-escalation has to start. We have to pull down our troops from the plateau, and that may take a while.
I was looking at the statement of the Ministry of External Affairs, Ambassador Trigunayat. Now, that did not mention that we will revert to positions as existed before April 2020. Now, what does that really mean? That somewhere India would like to see what is the action on the ground? We would not want to play up this disengagement too much right now. The de-escalation word, as General Dua pointed out, that is something that still needs to be achieved?
Well, Parikshit, I think we need to understand that with China, everything is a long haul, like their long march. And LAC often has been treated as line as for the Chinese. So what India is looking at, it is a good sign, as General Dua also said, that the de-escalation, which is a major de-escalation, I must say, will take place and will be completed within a given time frame. That is September 12th. A few days before the SCO summit in Uzbekistan. So what India's statement is very clearly, it has been that India wants a status quo of April 2020, and that has to happen eventually. But it wants a phased, coordinated, and in a verified manner, this withdrawal before the actual de-escalation really takes place. So currently it is happening, the disengagement, as is the fourth branch of it. But why is China doing now? Is obviously, one thing is that with the Chinese, everything goes. There are domestic issues in China, as you know. Today, they are playing up on their mind. The CPC meeting is coming up, where Xi Jinping might be once again coronated for another term of a lifetime. So that is what he's looking at. He does not want more friction points. Already with the US, there is the escalation which is taking place. There is a problem with them in their domestic sector, in the economy is under stress. So obviously for the Chinese, there are certain possibilities they don't want to open yet another front. And so that's why they are looking at it. SCO is a China-centric organization. If you know, it was Shanghai 5 and it's based out of Shanghai, and they want that if something has to be moved into the SCO format as well, India has to be on board. And when the two leaders of the two most important countries in this region are present there and planning to meet and going to be face-to-face, and you know that just before the BRICS summit, we had the visit of the Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi, which just without unannounced visit that took place. So even at that time, they were hoping that if there is a face-to-face meeting and a visit, fortunately, this was a virtual summit. So now there's going to be a face-to-face meeting. Some results have to be shown. And for India, has very clearly, as Prime Minister Modi earlier has said, the sovereignty is supreme for us. And peace we want, but on the terms which are equitable and which are honorable.
Right. So you're saying that this has taken place at the instance of both leaders in order to show some sort of deliverables, some sort of reason to their respective countries as to why this meeting is taking place. Without this disengagement at Gogra-Hotsprings, it would have been difficult to justify this meeting. Is that what you're saying, Ambassador Trigunayat?
Well, obviously, I mean, otherwise there was no reason to talk. I mean, bilaterally, there is nothing to talk if you have the problem on the border. So India has been maintaining that China has to indulge in the status quo and revert to that, which they have been doing. And there is always an incremental way that has happened. Now, after 16 meetings, we are seeing the fourth de-escalation. I think that this is one thing. I mean, otherwise, there was absolutely no reason for us to talk. There is nothing else to talk if there is a problem that goes ahead the way it has been going on the borders.
Right. General Dua, if I can come to you, till about a few weeks back, we had been hearing from sources in the security establishment that deployments at the LAC were at their peak. Almost 50,000 troops on each side. We're talking about very heavy machinery, Indian Air Force aircraft being deployed in those areas as well. Can that really be removed all of a sudden?
No, nothing can be done all of a sudden. Let me just explain. We spoke about disengagement, that is going away, from each other so that we don't spark off an incident inadvertently also. Then we talk of de-escalation. When you de-escalate, you will move away from the vicinity of the LAC as it used to be earlier. How many of those troops will actually go back to the plains will remain to be seen. And I suppose, like we had a mirror deployment today from both sides, these things in today's world is very transparent. Both sides can know of each other's positions. So, broadly speaking, and so I suppose again those actions will also mirror each other's. I mean, the de-escalation will also mirror each other's actions. So, when you said that troops may move away, how far back will they move? Because surely we will like to keep some reserves. Certain emplacements have been made, certain areas have been readied. So to that extent, our defense preparedness has moved up a notch or two, and that may be an understatement. So the fact remains, the progress remains to be seen. It will be a tricky thing, and the last sentence I'd like to say is that it will always be a long haul. And I gave you an example of 1967. And here also, we must be patient. I mean, all of us put together will have to be patient.
Right. The situation at the border will be guided by the political consensus between the leaders, between Prime Minister Modi and President Xi. The political relationship will guide the military tensions on the border. Do you feel that India would continue keeping up its guard at the LAC, considering what has happened in Galwan? The preparedness vis-a-vis China along Ladakh, along Arunachal, is not going to change now.
I'll put it this way, that we never let our guard down, whether it is LAC or LOC. Border guarding and border management are two different things. So we don't let our guard down. And even in the spirit of cooperation and de-escalation, the guard will never be lowered. So that is what I said. How far back will we move our troops, our readiness to be able to mobilize at a short notice, our preparedness to be able to launch if required will remain. And to that extent, in this last 2 years in the standoff, our infrastructure and our readiness posture have only improved.
Right. General Dua, Ambassador Trigunayat, thank you very much for joining us on this segment on India-China LAC tensions and what does this disengagement at Gogra-Hotsprings mean before a possible meeting of Prime Minister Modi and President Xi Jinping at the SCO summit. Thank you for joining us and goodbye.